Outback Experience. The Outback Experience, Graham Manley.
Thank you, Mr. Contest Chair, fellow Toastmasters and guests. Way back in the early 80s, I just arrived in Australia, all the way from England. And on my bucket list was to see the Outback, the famed Outback. So I got myself a map and I opened it up on the table and I looked for the Outback, the Outback, the Outback, the Outback. Where was this Outback? And then I thought, that must be it. It was only 3 inches from Melbourne. It sounded just like the Outback I'd always dreamt about. I was pumped. I was excited. I was going to Broken Hill. Anyone here been to Broken Hill? Oh, you're going to love this. Well, I had no money back then, so I thought, I'll do it on the cheap. I'll go camping and I'll go on the bus. And it was an overnight trip on the bus. And it was cheap and it was very uncomfortable. I sat in this seat that was broken, getting bounced around for 12 hours all night long. It was dreadful. Finally, when the sun came up, we'd reached Mildura. And I thought, I got to go into that cafe over there and do what every Pom would do at 6 o'clock in the morning and go and get a cup of tea. I walked in very confidently. Can I have a cup of tea? Sorry, mate, we got no water. What? Where have I come to? No water? Then, the last 3 hours, the final push down the Silver City Highway from Mildura to Broken Hill. Well, if you've ever been down that road, you know exactly what AC/DC's Highway to Hell looks like. Sand, left, right, back and front, broken only by the occasional bleached bones of a dead sheep or cow at the side of the road. I was expecting the gates of hell to appear any minute. But instead, after 3 hours, Broken Hill appears. Beautiful old colonial buildings, nice green lush gardens. I got off the bus, put my backpack on, and trudged in 45-degree heat. Now I'm a Pom who'd just come from the winter. 45-degree heat to the camping grounds. Oh boy, I was not prepared for this heat. Dressed really wrong. I got to the campsite and looked in. I was horrified. Bogans everywhere. I couldn't believe it. It was infested with bogans. And screaming kids. Hey, mister, can we help you set up your tent? No, get lost. Oh, I was tired. I lay out and tried to recover. Then I thought, I need to set up the tent. Now, I've never done this before, but hey, how hard could it be? And it was a cheap tent. I told you I'm doing it on the cheap. So I got it set up. Not too bad. Managed to get it done. And got inside. Well, immediately it dawned on me why the tent was so cheap. I think it was made for kids to play in. It was made out of some kind of plastic nylon material that radiated the heat from the sun. Now, it was 45 degrees outside. It was 65 degrees inside. I was sweating buckets. And the water I'd bought had gone hot. I couldn't even drink it. I didn't buy a ground mattress. I just lay on the ground and fell asleep. At night, at 2 a.m., a howling wind blew up and started shaking the tent. I woke up crippled with a backache. The tent started to shake violently as the wind got stronger. Before I knew it, I was the only thing holding the tent in place. If I moved out of this tent, it would disappear into the night and be gone. What could I do? I was crippled with a backache. It was 45 degrees. The hot wind was howling. And I needed to pee. But I couldn't leave the tent. I sat there till morning. Then I got up, put my stuff inside the tent and thought, right, I'm going to go for a little walkie poo and massage my back and feel a little bit better. Then I thought, back to the camping experience. I'll get my stove and cook my beans for breakfast. So I fired up the stove. Immediately the wind blew it out. I fired it up again. Immediately the wind blew it out, and I thought, I know. I'll bring my stove inside the tent and cook in there. So I fired up the stove. Immediately the temperature shot up. Now remember, it's 45 degrees outside. It's 65 because of the tent, and I've just fired up a stove. The wind is howling. My tent wants to escape, and I'm in real danger of being incinerated. Suddenly, I came to my senses. I put the stove out. I thought, I've got to just do this right. I don't want to die on this trip. I've only just got to Australia. I know. I'll go down to the RSL and have myself a nice breakfast down there. So I threw all my stuff inside the tent, went off to the RSL, and that's where I fell in love with the chicken parma and chips. A lifelong love that still continues to this day. Toastmasters. I spent a lot of time in the RSL when I was in Broken Hill. It was too bloody hot to be outside. I loved Broken Hill, but I didn't like where I was staying. One day I want to go back and stay in a nice hotel, a nice swimming pool, and enjoy it. From now on, for me, I'll never go camping again. Roughing it for me is staying at the Hilton instead of the Hyatt. Mr. Contest Chair.
Bill Cohen, Consequences of Belief. Consequences of Belief, Bill Cohen.
When I was in kindergarten, a kid came up to me and said, "Hey, you know the world's upside down?" "Oh yeah, I know that." Ah! We held on to anything and everything we could to stop us from falling, down through the sky and into the sun, being burned alive. So that was a fun game. That was a really fun game. But it got me thinking, could that kid have a point? Could the world really be upside down? So, to find out, I decided to do a little experiment. That afternoon, I'm having a drink. I take my glass and I flip it over. Orange juice goes everywhere. "Why did you turn your drink upside down?" "Oh, I didn't, Mum. Look, the world's upside down, so I've just turned the glass the right way up." See? Go to your room. In my room, I had plenty of time to think. It was a fun game. It was a lot of fun. But there were consequences. Specifically, I was stuck in my room, and I wanted to be out there watching cartoons. Now, this is the point. This is the point I'd like to make. If there's one thing you take away from this talk, it's this. We are free. You, me, all of us, we're all free to believe whatever we want. But there are always consequences. At that same age, I believed that dogs were boys and cats were girls. And as a consequence, to this day, I still don't understand evolution or reproduction. Let me give you another example. Let's see a show of hands here. Who here in the last 10 years, in their life, who here in their life has ever had a vaccine? See a show of hands? Most people, that's really good. Now keep your hands up if you've later found out that those vaccines were full of microchips so they can read our thoughts. A few people, yeah. Well, is that possible? Is that plausible? Let's think about that for a minute. Who gives us the vaccines? Who's they? Who gives us the vaccines? It's the government, right? Let's do that together. Who gives us the vaccines? The government, that's right. Now, would the government want to read our thoughts? Yes. Well, my thoughts haven't changed since I was a kid. I just want to play games and watch cartoons. So I don't think so. I think the vaccines are safe, But what are the consequences? What are the consequences for the people that believe that the vaccines are dangerous? They don't take their vaccines, they get sick, and they die. Oh, I talked about death in the humorous speaking contest. That's going to bring the mood down, isn't it? I shouldn't have done that. Well, let's move on. Let's move on. Let me give you another example. Lately, I've been changing. This is a personal example. I've been feeling like I've been getting a bit tired, and I've got some sore muscles, sore back. What could be going on there? Could I be getting older? No. Like, I'm obviously in peak physical condition. I'm in my late 40s. It's like the pinnacle age for human athleticism. So something else must be going on, but what? Could they be putting chemicals in our drinking water to make us think we're getting older? Possible, isn't it? That's possible. Let's think about that for a minute. Who gives us our drinking water? The government, that's right. The government. What's that? Oh, and the CIA, that's right. The government and the CIA. So it's plausible, isn't it? It's plausible. But how can I know for sure? So I decided to do another little experiment. About 3 months ago, I stopped drinking water and I just drink coffee. I haven't slept for a week. And now my mind is clear. I see it as clear as day. They are putting chemicals in our drinking water. But that's not all. They are putting those microchips in our vaccines so they can read our thoughts. And you know what? I strongly suspect the world really is upside down. Let's get back to those consequences, okay? What about the consequences? What are the consequences for the people that believe that drinking water is safe? They drink their water. They think they're getting older. And then the government taxes them more. Oh, if you haven't slept for a week, that's a logical chain of events that makes sense. But now what have I done? I've talked about death and taxes in one humorous speech contest. That's really going to bring the mood down. So we should move on, shouldn't we? We should move on. Now this is time for me to make a confession to you all. This is not the speech I prepared. I prepared something else, a very clever speech. It was hilarious. But I can't remember that anymore. You see, last night, something happened to me that you won't believe. And if you don't believe it, there will be consequences, I can tell you. Here I am, in Melbourne, sitting in my hotel room, minding my own business, when I was abducted by aliens. They took me in. They wiped that speech from my mind. It's gone. I can no longer remember a single word of that speech. And they replaced it with this one. They want me to use these words. And they want you to hear this message. And they want the world to believe one thing: you can't trust your government. Because when we believe that, society will crumble. It can no longer function. And that's what the aliens want. So that's when they can invade. That's when they can invade people. But I've got to ask myself a question. Is that what I want? Is that the consequence that I want? And if I ask myself that and I think about it, the answer is a firm no. So I'm going to choose to change my beliefs. I am going to drink my water. I am going to take my vaccine. And I am going to listen to my government, because they're the only ones protecting us from the aliens. Mr. Contest Chair.
Our next speaker, Geoffrey Graham. How to say nothing at all. How to say nothing at all, Geoffrey Graham.
Oscar Wilde once said, "I am so clever, I don't understand a single word of what I am saying." What an amazing statement. We could make an art form of this. Imagine people really saying nothing at all. Contest chair, Toastmasters and visitors. Perhaps if Oscar Wilde when he spoke those words, he wrote those words, he was thinking of Parliament today. So perhaps if we take a scene from Parliament where a seasoned veteran is questioned by a novice. Deputy Speaker, I refer to the question here from the member for Kickatinalong. I'll wait for you. Who's asked me two questions. One, he says, why are we letting down the ordinary Australians? And secondly, he's asking why, when I speak, I say nothing at all. Two questions, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Two questions. Firstly, why are we not looking after the ordinary Australians? And secondly, why, when we speak, do we say nothing at all? I don't think the honourable member understands Parliament. How ridiculous. This is an art form, sir. If you're in Parliament, you need to learn this. This is nothing new, Deputy Chair. In the Dark Ages, the clergy spoke centuries ago in Latin. Why? So the masses could not understand them. It's called keeping them in the dark. That's why they were called, Deputy Speaker, the Dark Ages. Now, we don't need to speak Latin in our Parliament because we use words with skill, words that are involved, obscure, invented, jargonistic. So that's the way that we talk. So I would like to point out to the member for Kickatinalong, he must learn this art form. And I tell you what I'll do. I will answer your question, sir, about ordinary Australians, and at the same time, I'll teach you, instruct you, the art of talking and saying nothing at all. Now, I have come up with 7 rules, 7 simple rules, Deputy Chair. Rule number 1 on how to say nothing at all. Repeat, repeat, repeat. We need to repeat words and sentences like Deputy Speaker, because we know when we say the words again, Deputy Speaker, it takes up a lot of time, and this is what it's about. It's about wasting time. Now, keep applying this to the question. No, we have not forgotten the ordinary Australians. We stand by the ordinary Australians. We stand up for the ordinary Australians. So we have not forgotten the ordinary Australians. Rule number 2, use a meaningless phrase. We copy the legal fraternity here. So answering the question, when we talk about the ordinary Australians, we need to study the question with respect to, in view of, and relating to all the variables concerning the ordinary Australians. Rule number 3, my favourite, use cliches and metaphors. These can really pull the focus away from the question. So my answer to the member would be our policies for the Australian people will be a win-win situation. And even if we move the position of the goalposts, we will still work outside the box. We will leave no stone unturned to ensure a safety net, Deputy Speaker, for the ordinary Australians. Rule number 4, use words incorrectly or merely make up your own. Irregardless of the facts, we must defactualise the member's comments, and I totally repudiate his inferences, and I say this, Deputy Speaker, with utter sincerity. We have redoubled our efforts, Deputy Speaker, to incentivate the ordinary Australians. Rule number 5, never answer a question with a yes or a no or a single word answer. As to the question regarding ordinary Australians, I might say something like, we are in non-stop dialogue, Deputy Speaker, and discussions are on the way. Rule number 6, it's always good to answer the question that you would have preferred to be asked. You're still with me? And to not answer the question that you were actually asked. It really frustrates the Speaker. Rule number 7, Deputy Speaker, and again, one of my favourites, instead of answering the question on what your party is doing, merely badmouth the opposition. Now, Deputy Speaker, to answer the question regarding ordinary Australians, look at what the opposition has done over the last 10 years, Deputy Speaker. They have crippled the ordinary Australians with excessive tax and overspending by billions of dollars, rules and regulations, and quite frankly, Deputy Speaker, they have left us to pick up the pieces, Deputy Speaker. And they have been absolutely no help to the ordinary Australian. So there you have it. 7 simple rules on how to say nothing. Quite frankly, when all is said and done, there's a lot said but little done. And when you boil it all down and separate the chooks from the ducks, separate the wheat from the chaff, the truth is unpalatable. And at the end of the day, you just have to sleep on it. Now, I've answered the question of the member from Kickatinalong regarding ordinary Australians, and I've also achieved 2 goals. I have spoken for 5 minutes and said absolutely nothing at all. And, I repeat that, and I have instructed the member from Kickatinalong on how easy it is to say nothing at all in Parliament. Oscar Wilde would be very impressed with our politicians today in how to say nothing at all. Contest chair.
Well done. Thanks.
So our next speaker, Jason Wong. Ignorance is bliss. Ignorance is bliss. Jason Wong.
Smoking hot, aren't I? I know. Just ask my wife. I don't normally dress like this. I'm more a t-shirt and jeans kind of guy. But given this nice context, I thought I would dress up. I've been married to my lovely wife for 15 blissful years, 5 months, and 10 days. But hey, who's counting? Every so often, for the last 15 years, 5 months and 10 days, she'll ask me, honey, why did you wear a bow tie on a wedding day? Do you know why I didn't? Because it reminds me of a darn Chinese restaurant waiter. That's why, honey. Do I really want to be reminded of this at my own wedding? Who in this room loves going to a Chinese restaurant? Oh, seafood. Ooh, I'm sorry. Tonight, I'll be sharing with you some of the dirty little secrets of Chinese restaurants. I know what you're all thinking. Which dodgy restaurant did you work at, Jason? Let's just say, after the Flower Drum, this will be considered one of the top 2 Chinese restaurants in Melbourne. And for the safety of my family, it shall remain anonymous. It could be triads amongst us here. When you go to a Chinese restaurant, who loves their prawn crackers? Oh, I'm sorry. It was one of my first shifts. My manager, Big Eric, told me to prep the prawn crackers. I grabbed the clean baskets. Maybe I'm ignorant, but I asked him, where are the tongs? Hey, Jason, what you doing? Let me show you, Eric said. This is how you do it. He'll grab the prawn crackers without washing his hands. Some for them, and some for me. Some for them, and some for me. Oh, that's why it's called Big Eric. When you're down this fine restaurant, you notice the table setting is immaculate. There's not a water drop stain on your cutlery or wine glasses. Big Eric told me to set the table. maybe I'm ignorant, but I asked Eric, where did clean tea towels to dry the glasses? Jason, what you doing? Clean tea towels cost money. Go to the laundry basket and grab a used napkin. Kid you not. We polish and clean your cutlery and wine glasses using old napkins. Bliss. When you're done this fine restaurant, you notice your dishes are always perfectly plated. There's not a drop of sauce on the side of the plate, and they are always complemented by one of these exquisite hand-carved carrot sculptures. Do you think the chefs are that careful when they're plating? It is us waiters who clean up the mess. And what do we use? Use napkins. Oh, yeah. And as for this little guy, that's another story. I will take the empty dish back to the wash station. Maybe I'm ignorant, but I'll chuck the carrot into the bin with the leftovers. But of course, Big Eric was watching. Jason, what you doing? Carrot costs money. He'll grab it out of the bin, rinse it under the tap, and pop it onto the next dish. Off you go. These days, when my family goes to a Chinese restaurant, my daughter will ask me, Daddy, can I eat the carrot? No. But the carrots are healthy, Daddy. Not in a Chinese restaurant, honey. When you dine in this fine restaurant, it is full silver service. We plate your food. I'll present the dish to my table. This is your lobster with the soy sauce, and I'll start plating. And of course, Big Eric was watching. Jason, what you doing? Let me show you. He'll take the dish back to the side station. He will plate, and I will serve. When I return after the last dish, I notice there's a few lovely pieces of lobster still left. I will follow Eric back to the kitchen. Maybe I'm ignorant, but I thought, what happened to these, Eric? Did you drop them? Jason. What you doing? It's like prawn crackers. Some for them, and some for me. I learned a great deal from Big Eric. After all, an elite waiter must keep up with his energy. Some for them, and some for me. Bliss. Over the years, I joined the ranks of Big Eric. I became a head waiter. I was Big Jace. Hard to believe, right? Look at me now, smoking hot. Just ask my wife. There you have it. Some of the dirty little secrets of Chinese restaurants. From your best restaurants in Chinatown to your local takeaway, they are all the same. Dodgy! Next time when you go to your Chinese restaurant and you see your waiter smiling at you, you know exactly why. You can say to those dirty little waiters, I know what you're doing. Fellow Toastmasters and guests, when it comes to Chinese restaurants, ignorance is really a bliss. Back to you, contest chair.
Well done, Justin. So, our next contestant, Pam Reid Be Weird, Pam Reid.
I am a former teacher, so if you could please swing on your chair, if you could look bored and disinterested at the back, and if you could perhaps pick your nose and eat it, I will feel right at home. Teaching was always a bit like being on stage, giving a performance. Lucky for me, I studied drama in high school. I was not a natural. But I was inspired by my drama teacher one day to be my confident, authentic self on stage. We were planning for our final performance exam. It was big. And it was titled, Hey Diddle Diddle, the Cat and the Fiddle. And so as we're brainstorming ideas, how we could showcase our learnings from the year, our drama teacher said, think about what are your strengths on stage? Yep, I had nothing. So I raised my hand and I said, Sir, what are my strengths on stage? Now, my drama teacher was a gentle man, short in stature, a little bit cute, but he had a big, booming voice that only a drama teacher could have. And in front of the whole class, he said, well, Pamela, you have a face like a cartoon character. What? You're all animated and weird with your face. Contest chair, fellow Toastmasters and guests, that is what any self-conscious teenager wants to hear. There I was, getting used to my long, gangly legs, my tiny boobs in the wake of Pamela Anderson era. Thanks, Pamela. Trying to land myself a boyfriend, and I am told I have a face like a cartoon character. That is what I wanted to hear, no, needed to hear, to become my confident, authentic self on stage. And I never did quite live that down for the rest of my school life. Little did I know how handy a face can be as a teacher. A smiley face to stop any tantrum. That's just the parents. A look of shock when someone dared interrupt my story. And my favourite, and depending on how naughty you were at school, you may know it, the look. Oh yes, how brilliant a face can be. It became my bag of tricks. Other teachers needed bells and whistles and puppets and jingles, and all I needed was my face. And now as I leave entertaining children and I step into the world of adult entertainment, not like that. My business is aptly named Performance Coaching, and I am on a mission to help people on their stage, life's stage, so that they can embrace all of their weird and all of their features, because they are the very parts of them that become their own bag of tricks, so they can become their own cartoon character in their life. Now, I know you're wondering, what did I do for my end-of-year performance? I did indeed embrace my weird, and I became the cat, who had lost her fiddle. And as I sit here now, as a feisty feline, I encourage you all to be weird. Contest chair.
Well done.
Sanjay, Wijesekare. Toastmasters is painful. Toastmasters is painful. Sanjay, Wijesekare.
Got it. At the age of 5, I was desperate to get married. At the age of 15, I was just desperate. At the age of 25, I was still desperate. At the age of 30, I was desperate to get out of marriage. Guess what? Because I joined Toastmasters. Out of everyone here, let's have a raise of hands who are married. Keep your hands up there. Out of all of you who are happily married. Ooh. Few of us would have got married quite lately, I guess. Well, let me tell you about my marriage life. It was the 14th of July, some year. The sun was shining, the birds were chirping, and somewhere in the heavens, the angels were singing. And I looked into her eyes, and I said, I do. People, those were the last words that I uttered with my consent. For the next 15 years, it was filled with, yes, dear, of course, dear, you look 15 years pretty in that dress. Followed by, no, I'm not lying, I'm not. Again followed by, no, I'm not lying, I'm not. But guess what? All good things should come to an end. And that's when I decided to join Toastmasters. Because it is at Toastmasters that I learned 3 mistakes that ruined my marriage life. Yes, it did. But what's not taught at Toastmasters, but what should be included in the curriculum is that those rules should only be for professional use only. They should not be practiced at home. If you do, you'll end up like me. Mistake number 1, speaking from the heart and gusto. It was those first few days that I joined Toastmasters. All of you would know. Heart brimming with experience, wanting to speak out loud. And my dear darling wifey, it was our first anniversary, she came up to me and said, darling, shall we do something different for a change? Different? She said, why don't you go to the kitchen? I said, I tensed up. I knew I didn't mean it. But then she walked to the kitchen. I sat there, brimming with experience, and then a huge flash of silver came flying by, and guess what? This happened. Gentlemen, never ever open your mouth to criticize nor advise. It's either to eat or compliment. Cut. See, number 2, mistake 2, I would say. Maintaining eye contact. She came up to me and asked, one fine day, I don't know how, because something is lost. I even asked, what do you mean by eye contact? I looked her from top to down and bottom to up again. And I said, you need to make eye contact. It makes you look so great as a person. And it makes you so youthful as your sister. I said that. Yeah, bad. And if looks could kill, I would have been dead. So instead, first she looked at me, and then she gave me the eye. Guess what? Toastmasters is painful. And after 2 mistakes, I should have learned that I should not be repeating my Toastmasters rules at home. Wife, marriage, Toastmasters, nada. But then, ladies, do men ever learn from mistakes? I can't hear. No. Can't hear? No. So did I learn? No. You guys are so knowledgeable. Wow. Lovely. So mistake number 3, feedback. Yeah. So it was our friend's wedding, and she had this lovely red dress. She came up to me and asked, darling, how do I look? Not in that tone, can't impersonate her. And feedback, she said, criticism, feedback. And you know about the sandwich method, compliment, criticism, compliment. Oh yeah. Said, yeah, your hairdo is nice. Well, we can work on the, you look a bit fat. I said that. And then she, in return, evaluated me in the BROOM method. Not the acronym. She took the broom, and as that broom touched my tender flesh, which I can show right here, guess what I realized? Toastmasters is painful. But now the most painful realization of all. My wife is sitting right there in the second row, listening to this speech for the first time. Yeah. I might be laughing, but I know what's going on in her mind, those creative ways to murder me, those sharp knives in the kitchen that's waiting. So, let us raise a toast to the soon-to-be departed me. So can all of you rise with me? Because this is going to be my final toast. Can all of you rise? Yes. So here lies a Toastmasters fool who forgot the first rule, and all that I did was toast to my wife and died. Contestant.
Marlene Sinclair. Nurse Collins, my office. Nurse Collins, my office. Marlene Sinclair.
Can you remember your first day at work? All bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and didn't have a clue what was going on. My first job was the ward's via matron's office. You see, as a junior nurse, I had 3 things against me. I was young. I was over-enthusiastic, gung-ho. And things just seemed to happen to me. Like the time Sister asked me to collect all the false teeth and brush them till they shine, nurse, until they shine. So Speedy sped round that ward and picked up the teeth and brushed them till they shone, Sister, till they shone. And then I went to give them out of the big bowl. Who on earth do these belong to? There was only one thing for it. I had to find the owners, any owner. Here, dear, try these. No, I don't think they're mine. Damn it. Oh, look, here's a little set of beauties for you. Try them. No, I don't think they're mine either. Damn. I knew I was going to be here all day until I got those handed out to any owner. I got to the end of the line. The last ones didn't fit, did they? What was I going to do, start again? Not likely. And it was Nurse Collins, my office. And things went bad at the morgue too. I mean, things just kept happening. The old porter, Rakesh, came down to the ward to take a body to the morgue. But he brought with him, didn't he, James, the uninitiated, who'd been there 3 days. And James nearly died himself when he found he had to go to the morgue. Down to the morgue we traipsed. I rang the bell. Why is it that every mortician looks like a mad scientist with a limp? You rang. James is a perilous shade of puce. He's shaking all over. Rakesh moved in, pulled open the drawer, and he said, I'm very sorry, but there is a body already there. James is heading towards the door, visibly ashen. With that, the body sat up on the table and said, get me out of here, I'm freezing. James took off and was last seen running up the hill, busting through Matron's rose bushes. He didn't even come back for his pay. You see, I'd made a deal with the electricians who were working in the morgue. But Rakesh wasn't supposed to bring James. He came along. How did I know that he was bringing his mate down to the morgue? Nurse Collins, my office. And going to the morgues was 2 a.m. and I had to go down to the morgue all by myself, taking a very heavy trolley. You come out of the service lift and down this long path, steep. I had the end of it and I'm walking along, getting faster and faster. It took off on me. So I'm skiing down the path, calling out, help, help. The Italian cooks were hanging out the windows saying, go nursey, ole, ole. There loomed a right turn at the end. The trolley went over and stopped dead. It stopped dead, I stopped dead, but the body kept on going. And it landed in Matron's prized rose bushes. 2 a.m, what do? Well, 2 nice gentlemen with big chef's hats came down, helped me hoik him back on the trolley and dust him off. Trouble is, rumours were rife in the ward the next day about chefs and dead bodies down near the morgue. Nurse Collins, my office. And I got into trouble in the ward too. One day I was washing a patient and he had an oxygen mask on him. And he said, nurse, can you tell me if my testes have turned black? I said, Mr. Jones, I'm just here to wash your back. He went on and he went on and he went on. And in the end, I whisked off the sheet and had a good look around. And with my nicest smile, I said, Mr. Jones, your testes have not turned black. I said, nurse, have my tests come back? Nurse Collins, again. So you can see, things were never dull. And you'll be very pleased to know I fixed up that complaining man that got the wrong teeth. I sorted him out and swapped him with a patient from the morgue. Over to you.
And so, our third place getter, the big drum roll. And it had to be Sanjay Wijesekare. Well done, well done. Thank you. We move now to our second place getter. And this is Pam Reid. Congratulations. You jumped in there. Yeah, well done.
What do I do?
Yeah, you look good. Done.
Beautiful.
Done. Well done. And now, this is what you've all been waiting for. And it is Marlene Sinclair. Well done. Well done.